Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. So what we're trying to do is to work on this practice exam where you're going to create a mirror image of a right triangle using a repetition structure. So the input would look something like this. We'll ask the user to enter a number from 3 to 10. When they enter that number, then we're going to draw a triangle, as you can see here, that's inverted or mirrored image. If the user enters any other number, then we have to display a message box to indicate that they didn't enter a number from 3 to 10. If the user enters something like a letter, say for example, then we also need to display some sort of a message box indicating that the user did not enter the data correctly. And then it says, given that the user does enter a valid value, we'll display the mirror image of the right triangle. And so part of the software requirements, you're supposed to use a repetition structure. And we'll use a while statement to draw the necessary spaces and stars before this. Okay, before I do this though, let me just draw something for you really fast so that you can understand the concept of what it is that what we're being asked to do. And so, say for example, if I were to draw on, actually I can just use Microsoft Excel for this. Let's say for example that if I have, let's see here, 60 pixels over here and 60 pixels over here, something like this. And let me increase the font size for this. Okay, that's good. All right, if I did have to draw an inverted right triangle like this, the thing to notice is that if I take the user number, which in this case is 4, and if I were to subtract 1 from it, then you'll notice that I have the number of spaces. 4 minus 1, 1, 2, 3 spaces. And then I draw a star. The increase of stars from row to row looks like it increases by 2, or by 1 rather. So here's 1. Now here's 1 plus 1 is 2. Here's 1 plus 2 is 3, so forth and so on, until finally I get to that last row. And it looks like the spaces before decreases by 1. So I have 1, 2, 3, then I have 1, 2, then I have 1. Let's try it for another star. Let's say, for example, that the user enters 5. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, then that means that for the next row, we're going to have 4, and then for the next row, we'll have 3, and then for the next row, we'll have 2 stars. And then for the first row, of course, we're just going to have the 1 star. How many spaces before? 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, verifying that whatever the user number is, we subtract 1 from it, and that gives us the number of spaces before. Okay, so now I have an idea. I've kind of thought about how I'm supposed to start off. The first row will always have 1 star, right? The first row will always have 1 star. And then the number of spaces is going to be the user number minus 1. Okay, so let me go back over here now to my Visual Basic program. And I've already created a form over here. What is that? TXT user num. I have btn draw a right triangle button, and then finally I have the LBL output. Now I want this output to look aligned properly. So what I'll do is I'll change the font to Courier New. This is a monospaced font. That way all of the width of every single character looks the same. So we'll change that to Courier New. And right now the size is 7. Let's make that 9 points. I may have to change that. Let's just start off with 9 points. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, depending on what 10 looks like. Okay, let me go ahead and double click on the button. And before I start any program, I always start off with my comments of declarations. Get user input, calculation, and then of course output. So I have to ask myself, what is it that I'm going to be getting from the user, and what is it that I need to give to the user? Well, it looks like I need to get the user number that represents, the number of stars for a given triangle, or how tall or how wide the triangle is going to be. So I'll just simply say user num as integer. Now, what is it that I'm going to be giving back to the user? It looks like I'm going to be giving them the actual picture of the triangle. So I'll just simply create that as a string. I'll say dim output as string, and I'll assign that to nothing at the very beginning. So over here at the get user input, I'll just say user num convert dot to int rather, to int 32, whatever is inside of the text box. So txt.text. Now I have the user number. Okay, now calculation. Let me go back over here to my Excel spreadsheet. I know based on this that I'm going to have some sort of a variable that gives me the number of spaces before. So I think what I'll do is I'll say dim spaces before as integer. And then of course I'm going to have to know how many stars I draw per row. So I'll say stars to draw as integer. Okay, so in my calculation, I had better determine what those values should be for spaces before and stars to draw. Well, back over here, I discovered that if the user enters 4, the number of spaces to draw is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so in this case, spaces before is going to be user number, or yeah, that's right, user number minus 1. That tells me the number of spaces before. Now, we already discovered that the first row always has that 1 star to draw. So we'll say stars to draw. That's always going to start off with 1. Okay. Well, now that I have this, let me go ahead and use a while statement to keep on drawing. So I'll draw this first row. Have I finished? No. Have I finished? No. Have I finished? No. Have I finished? Yes. What is the definition of finishing? Well, notice that I have 4 stars to draw. So while the number of stars to draw is less than 4, then we're going to keep on doing this as long as it's less than or equal to 4. So we'll say while stars to draw is less than or equal to whatever the user number is. As long as that's the case, then we're going to keep on drawing. Let me just explain this to you one more time. How many stars do I have to draw on that first row? Of course, just 1. So obviously we haven't finished. We still haven't finished because we have to draw a total of 4 stars. All right, we still haven't finished. Yeah, now we finally have finished. So as long as the number of stars to draw is less than the user number, and let's say the user number enters 4, okay, is 1 less than 4? Yeah. How about 2? How about 3? How about 4? Is 4 less than or equal to 4? Yes. Then eventually this is going to go to 5. When that goes to 5, then we don't do this anymore. We don't draw any more rows. That's why I've established it this way. All right. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to draw the spaces. So we draw the spaces before. Then we're going to have to draw the stars. And then after that, we're going to get ready for the next iteration. Or another way, get ready for the next lap. The next lap. Or loop. Okay, so draw the spaces before. While, oh, before I do this, let me create a counter variable. So dim counter as integer. I'm going to need a counter because I'm going to be looping. So we'll let the counter, say a counter, set to 0, right? We're getting ready to go on a race. And so we set our counter to 0 while the counter is less than spaces before. So in other words, have I drawn all of the spaces before? So I'm going to draw this one. Then I'm going to draw this one. Then I'm going to draw this one. Okay, have I drawn all the necessary spaces? Yes. Discontinue. All right, so the output is going to be whatever the old output is. I'm going to concatenate that with a space. See the space right here? And then I'm going to take that counter and I'm going to increment it by 1 because I've just finished 1 lap. Now I'm getting ready to finish a second and a third and a fourth and so forth and so on. So what this thing does is it draws spaces to the output variable, namely these spaces as you can see right here. So however many spaces that I need to draw, that's what this guy does. All right. Once I've drawn all those spaces, now I got to get ready to draw all the stars. Well, I know how many stars I have to draw, as you can see over here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just do another while statement. First, let me set the counter back to 0, right, because we're getting ready to run another new race. And I'll say while the counter is less than stars to draw. While that is the case, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to take that output and I'm going to append to it. I'm going to add to it a star. Once I've done that, the counter will increment by 1. And then I keep on doing this over and over and over again. See, for this first row, you only draw 1 star. But for the third row, say for example, I draw 1 space and then I draw a star. Shall I draw another? Yeah. Shall I draw another? Yeah, because you're supposed to draw 3. And then once you've drawn those stars, then we're done. So that takes care of this chunk of code. Well, now I have to get ready for the next iteration. Well, let's see. Notice that the number of spaces decreases by 1. Right? I went from 3 to 2 over here. So what we're going to do is say spaces before is going to be decremented by 1. Now notice the number of stars. It increases by 1 for the next row. So stars to draw increments by 1. All right? And then what do? I go to the beginning of the next line. So here I am, I've just drawn this, I got to go to the beginning of the next line. So in order to do that, we'll say output is going to be whatever the old output is. I'm going to concatenate that with a VB new line. What the VB new line constant does is it says go to the beginning of the next line. It simulates the enter button on your keyboard. And what does the enter button on your keyboard do? It goes to the beginning of the very next line. So this is like simulating pressing enter. Once you've done that, we go back to this while statement and we do all this all over again. Draw the spaces before, okay? And then we draw all of the stars, okay? And then we get ready for the next lap and we go to the beginning of the next line. So now we're over here. We keep on doing that as long as the stars to draw is going to be less than or equal to the user number. Once we're done with that, then I can send the output to the label. So I can say LBL output is going to be whatever the output variable is. All right, let's see what happens. So if I click Start, and I'm going to enter a value of 5. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. Good. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And the necessary spaces before. Looks good. How about 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just made my label just big enough to accommodate the 10. Okay, so this works, but what I have not done is I haven't fulfilled the requirements which say that we want to prevent a user from entering any other value than 3 to 10, and we also want to make sure that they enter a number and not a letter. So let me take care of that portion of the code. So back over here, when we're going to be getting the user input. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll say try. I'm going to try, and so that's a try block right there. What I'm going to try to do is this. Let me cut this and put it over here. I'm going to try to get the data from this text box and put it into the user variable. Now, if the user enters a number, fantastic. But if the user enters anything else, then I want to stop that. So what I'll do is I'll display a message box dot show, and now I have all these different flavors. I think my favorite flavor is 7, where I enter a text and a caption and a button and an icon. So let's use this one over here. So the text property will be enter a number, comma, and then let me see, I'm back over here at 7. What's the next thing here? It's to enter the caption. That's the title on the box. So I'll just say invalid input, comma, and then I get to enter what kind of button that I want. And I just want an OK button. So I'll double click this guy, comma, and then I get to enter the kind of icon that I want. So let's just say the error icon is fine. Okay, so it's going to display a message box. Now, I want to blank out the text box. So I'll just simply take that text box and set it to nothing with a quote, close quote. And then finally, I'm going to exit the sub. Don't continue with the rest of the code over here because we've made a mistake. So we'll just simply go to the end of the sub, which means it jumps all the way over here to the end of the sub, and it skips all the stuff in between. So verify that the user entered a number, because if they didn't, this is going to stop them from going on. Now the next thing that I need to do is I need to verify that the user entered a number in the valid range. And according to my user requirements, that's any number from 3 to 10. Okay, so I'll do this. If the user number is less than 3, or if the user number is greater than 10, then, well, if that's the case, I need to display a message box. You made an error. You're not supposed to enter a user number less than 3. You're not supposed to enter a user number greater than 10. So I'll just do this deal again, message box. But it has to be a little bit different in terms of the message. Enter a number in the range of 3 to 10. That's what the error was. They didn't enter a number in the range 3 to 10. Again, what I'll do is I'll just simply take that text box, I'll blank it out, and then I'll exit the sub. You do not continue with the rest of the code. They didn't do it right, so I want to stop them. Okay, let's see what happens. So now let me enter an invalid value, 1. Okay, invalid input, enter a number in the range 3 to 10. Okay, let me try a greater number like 12. Okay, same error, so that's good, it works. And how about this? Let's enter the letter W. Okay, enter a number, good. How about like hashtag? So enter a hashtag. Same thing, enter a number. Once again, if I do enter a number like 5, then the program should work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's it. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.